Good morning or good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. Welcome to the third episode of the Voices of Sustainability virtual fireside chat series. I'm Julia Pyper. I'm a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and Zayed Sustainability Prize selection committee member. For those who don't know, the Zayed Sustainability Prize is the United Arab Emirates pioneering global award for recognizing sustainability and humanitarian solutions around the world. Since its establishment more than a decade ago, the prize has awarded 86 winners who have collectively impacted the lives of more than 352 million people worldwide, across the categories of health, food, energy, water, and global high schools. The title of this conversation is Innovation as the Foundation of a Sustainable Planet. And I'm pleased to be speaking today with Virginie Helias, Global Chief Sustainability Officer for Procter & Gamble. She is truly a pioneer in sustainability. She's spearheaded new ways for companies to protect our planet while making sustainable products interesting and accessible to consumers. Virginie, hello. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's jump right in. So my first question to you is, as Chief Sustainability Officer at one of the largest multinational consumer goods corporations, how do you perceive the role of industry and big business in harnessing innovation and technology to do good?
Yeah, this is a fundamental question. And I believe big business has a fundamental role, to play, because they have the expertise, the resources, and the scale. So they can use all this for good, And at P&G, our mission is to enable and inspire positive impacts across our value chain. So that means upstream in our supply chain and downstream, when people use our product and dispose of them. And so the question is, how can we do that? And the answer is actually both innovation and collaboration. So you're asking about innovation, which I must say is P&G lifeblood. I could say it's our superpower. And we are using our innovation capabilities to help solve the biggest sustainability challenges. So climate, water, plastic waste, biodiversity. So take waste, for instance. Our stated ambition is that we will develop solutions so that no P&G packaging finds its way to the ocean. And so how does innovation play a role there? Well, first, it's redesigning our packaging so that we reduce the amount of virgin petroleum plastic that we use. Our goal is a 50% reduction, by 2030. And we need innovation to do that, And sometimes we also need new business models. So for instance, we've just launched in Europe what we call the good refill system, which is basically a durable aluminum bottle of shampoo or conditioner that you refill with a pouch. Or on oral care, we have a toothbrush and you can refill the head, So, and all this is 60% less plastic, So, and it requires innovation. We also innovate on alternative material, like replacing plastic altogether. We've launched all paper deodorants, for instance. We're also innovating on solid form so that you can reduce packaging to really a minimum, like take, for instance, the EC30 innovation that we've launched. And it's basically fiber-based swatches that eliminate water altogether in the product. And then the product activates at the contact of water, when you wash your hair, when you clean your toilets or your dishes. So this is all about innovation. And I mentioned also new business model. For instance, we have an innovation which is called Loop. This is a coalition, and it's basically a new shopping platform which replaces single-use plastic packaging with durable, refillable packaging that you can buy anywhere, online or in store. You can return anywhere. We have a pilot in France, pilot in the US, and we just launched in Japan. And for this system, for instance, you need innovation and you need tech, because you need a central technology backbone that will make it easy for people to get your deposit when you return the empties, for instance. So all this is tech and innovation, enabling the low carbon economy.
It hits home what you're saying, because I live in Los Angeles and there are beach cleanups. We see it every day, the pollution in our backyard. And, we're all spending more time at home right now. We are ordering packaging. And so you see all this stuff. And sometimes even when it says recycle on it, it's not quite clear where it goes. So I totally hear you on making it convenient for people. I admit I have some guilt sometimes in not figuring out where things should go. So going to my second question, though, in a recent speech, you outlined that climate change, water scarcity, and waste are the biggest global challenges of our time. So can innovation provide a framework to address the interconnected elements of these challenges? How do you think about them all at the same time, climate, water, and waste?
Yeah. There are obviously compounding challenges, and very often when you work on addressing one, you actually address the other. And let me just illustrate that with an example. It will be easier to understand. This is an example that was built to address water scarcity, but in the end, it's an amazing solution for also climate. And the example is called the 50-liter home coalition. It's basically about reinventing the future of urban water through the use of innovation that reduce the carbon emission and also help with water security. And for you living in Los Angeles, I think you will also relate to that, And the idea behind the 50-liter home is basically to make 50 liters of water per person per day, an even more desirable experience than the current 150 or 260, depending on where you live. In the US, it's on the higher end of the range, 260 liters in average usage per person per day. And we want to make 50 liters possible through innovation. And how do we do that? We basically make water recycling throughout the home possible. And we also bring in the Internet of Things that will provide residents with real-time data on their footprint and what is the associated cost, so that we know that it's kind of work as a nudge for people to reconsider how they use water at home. And so because most of the water used in our home is heated water, by reducing the amount of water, recycling it, we are actually also addressing climate change. Because homes represent actually a third of the global greenhouse gas emission. And when you have less water to heat, then you need less electricity and energy to heat it. And so you see, how the project, which was actually born in Cape Town, South Africa, 3 years ago, they faced a major drought. And they had the threat of what's called the day zero, which is when there is no more water at the tap. So they avoided day zero because the government put in place those very strict restrictions of 50 liters per person per day. But without innovation, and we come back to the innovation question, this is absolutely terrible to live on 50 liters. In those places, in Cape Town, women with long hair would have to cut their hair because you cannot wash and rinse long hair with 50 liters per day per person. Just your 8-minute shower this morning is already above 70 liters of water. So imagine, 50 liters in your whole day. So this is how innovation can make sustainable living irresistible and address many of those challenges, which are all very much interconnected.
It's helpful just to hear how much water we're using. Goodness, I'm going to take shorter showers after this. Because yes, we are indeed facing another dry year in California. So, it really hits home. Going back to more the waste and pollution side of this, in a recent Voices of Sustainability episode, David de Rothschild addressed plastic pollution and its impact on biodiversity. So from your position, you've led various projects to highlight the issue of pollution, as we've discussed, and you encouraged your brands to actually produce bottles from recycled beach plastic, I understand, to drive awareness about it and cultivate a culture where, I think as it's put, those that are part of the problem become part of the solution. But my question is, are we moving fast enough towards a global circular economy model? How can if not, how can innovation catalyze that further, keeping David Rothschild's words in mind that this is really taking a toll on our biodiversity already?
Yeah, absolutely. The good news, Julia, is that we've passed the stage of awareness. Actually, when we did the beach plastic bottle, it was very much kind of an alarm bell to say, look, I mean, there is a huge problem, and people like brand manufacturers can actually be part of the solution. And it was kind of the red flag saying, look, this Head and Shoulders plastic bottle that you knew as being, you know, white and blue is now turned gray because it's made of all this mixed plastic, you know. And it was a very strong brand statement to say there is a problem and we can be part of the solution, us by innovating, you by recycling. But we've passed that stage, you know, and actually to a point that there is a shortage of supply of recycled material because brands are now committing to include this recycled material into their packaging to close the loop. And so there is not enough for everyone, which is kind of a good news because it means that there is really this willingness to develop the circular economy. And the problem is that recycling rates are still too low. You know, even in my country, in Switzerland, which is one of the most sophisticated, you know, recycling systems, the rates are only at 54%, you know. So there is a need to do actually a combination of things. It's not, there is no silver bullet. It's not one thing that will solve everything, but it starts with making 100% of our packaging recyclable, you know, and at P&G, we are not yet there. We have a stated goal to be by 2030, and hopefully will be much earlier than that. But, you know, definitely by 2030, 100% of packaging will be fully recyclable. And in a way which is not just theoretical. I mean, to your point, it will mean that people will have access to a collection and recycling system that they can actually go on and you know, sort their bottle, their packaging in a separate bin. But so to make sure that people recycle, you also need to ensure that there is this infrastructure available. And the problem today is that in many regions, it's totally underdeveloped. And this is why, for instance, and those regions are mostly in Asia, Southeast Asia, you know, and this is why a few years ago, P&G and other founding members created the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, which is well named, you know, to say that what we want to do is to eliminate plastic so that it doesn't leak into nature, which is very often into the ocean, which are all connected. And so what's, you know, leaking in Southeast Asia has a lot of chances to go to your shores, you know, in California. So what we are doing with this alliance is that we invest in collection and recycling infrastructure, and we help those governments and those cities, you know, to develop this infrastructure so that everyone can have access to a collection system, you know, and we have that in many other parts of the world. In the US, you know, we are founders also of the closed loop partners to help galvanize, you know, this recycling industry. But there is another thing that is actually slowing down the development of the circular economy is, as I mentioned, there is not enough recycled material. So even if people want to use that as part of their packaging, and the reason is, one, I mentioned it, is low recycling rates, but then even if people recycle, recyclers have a hard time to sort correctly, because as you know, there are so many kinds of different plastic types, you know, and in order to have really high value of recycled material, you need to have very accurate sorting. And today it's very difficult to make the distinction between what we call food grade and the rest. And for that, we have developed with other people, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation was kind of the force behind that, and now P&G is spearheading the effort. It's called the Holy Grail Coalition. And it uses an amazing technology with digital watermark. So imagine the packaging would have very small watermark, like post-stamp size watermark, embedded on all the surface of the packaging. And it's invisible to the human eye, but it can be detected by special equipment at the recyclers, so that it's sorted perfectly and you have a very clean stream of recycled material. So you increase the value and you increase the quantity. And through that, you develop the circular economy. So again, innovation is at the core of solving those planetary challenges, like you mentioned, like waste.
That's so interesting. I mean, I always feel, again, I should be doing more to recycle better. We recycle a lot, but then are you really paying attention to what you just threw in the blue bin? Or, to pay attention to numbers on the plastic. So having a technology solution, recognizing just that we need to do this at scale seems like that would have a big impact. Because I think if I was hearing you correctly, it's really about scale now. We know a few bottles here and there being recycled is great, but now how do we implement systems that can do this at a much greater level?
It's absolutely a scale, and I think a topic that I hope we'll talk, because it's absolutely fundamental, is the topic of collaboration and partnership. Because along with, as I said, innovation, that's the other part of the solution.
Well, I was going to ask you more specifically, besides technology, is there a socio-economic transformation required? I know you mentioned working with governments, getting new systems in place for recycling. Is there anything else you'd mention on the socio-economic side of things?
I think 2 points on this: collaboration, but not just, collaboration like we used to talk about, which is, you go with one of your supplier. And no, this is what I call radical collaboration. It is cross-sector. It includes your competitors, which is uncomfortable, but it's absolutely necessary in those kind of pre-competitive partnership. It is public-private. It includes, cities and citizens. I mean, it's really broad collaboration. The 50-liter home coalition that I mentioned has partners across the entire energy and water value chain. So from Kohler, manufacturer of bathroom appliances, to Suez, expert in waste and water management, and also organizations like the World Economic Forum, the World Bank's water group. It has to be really very broad, including all the stakeholders. So, and it's not a small thing, it's actually a cultural shift, because we know how to compete, but we need to learn how to collaborate. I talked about Holy Grail. This is more than 100 companies, collaborating to bring to life this technology. And there is something with, I said radical collaboration, because more and more we need to also have the one that before we would not even want to talk to, which are what I would call the activists, And I just want to mention an initiative, because it's I think it's really a leading edge one in terms of collaborating. It's called the Ocean Plastic Leadership Network. It started, and I was part of it, as an expedition 2 years ago when we could still travel. It was basically a leadership summit on a ship, going to the Atlantic gyre, those big patches that are made of microplastic, basically, the size of Texas, like huge places in the middle of the ocean. And so we went there. We actually got to dive directly into the plastic, so dive at the heart of the issue, But the most interesting piece is on this ship, there were 163 stakeholders, and it ranged from industry players, P&G, Nestle was there, all the way to activists, so people like Greenpeace, And we were all together to solve the issue of ocean plastic pollution. I mean, this is extremely strong, a common agenda to solve a common issue. And so now the effort is structured, and we get together again to solve some of the, the issue on plastic waste. So nothing really at scale, to your point, can be achieved without collaboration. The second shift I would mention is consumer participation, because innovation is great. I can do all my packaging recyclable, but as you say, if Julia is not recycling, it becomes a moot point, And the thing with consumer participation is there is what we call the intention to action gap, which means that over 70% of people say they want to do their bit for the environment. They want to contribute. They want a healthy planet. And actually, COVID has increased this awareness and consciousness that people understand that the health of people and the health of the planet are actually intrinsically linked. And so they want to do more. But only half of them admit that they do as much as they would like to. And this gap of 20 points is because they say, I don't know how, and they are actually welcoming brands to help them navigate the complexity of the recycling, of the, saving water and energy at home. And this is great for us, obviously, because this is how we can come along and say, for instance, it has to be small acts. We say we've just launched at P&G the It's Our Home platform, which is basically helping people understand that the small acts that they do at home can actually add up to make a difference. So for instance, if you wash your clothes in cold water, you can actually save a lot of energy when you multiply, by the number of households. I mean, P&G touched 5 billion people around the world, and it can make a great difference. If you skip the rinse when you put your dishes in the dishwasher, so usually we go under the sink and pre-rinse them, you can actually, save up to 100 gallons per week per household. And we have developed products, Cascade, Platinum, which works so well that you don't need to pre-rinse your dishes. You can save a lot of water. So we innovate, but we actually need people to participate so that we can materialize the energy saving of the water saving or the material saving. So that, and as I said, people are ready to do it more and more. I mean, universally, actually, in all countries, there is this increased desire to do something to protect the planet, but they need help. And this is where brands can help.
Yeah, that's interesting. I agree. We all have a role to play. I think it's always that interplay between what the individual action and that meeting a systemic change where the big players you mentioned first, the collaboration also happens at the highest levels. So you have big shifts happening while bringing individual players along. It has to be the two together, and then we can make some real change. Just to finish up on the consumer point, though, you say, P&G's motto is, making sustainability irresistible to drive responsible consumption. So just quickly on that, how do you make it irresistible to consumers?
Yeah, so I mentioned washing your clothes in cold water, which seems like a very small act, but it is actually probably the biggest thing we can do as a company to reduce our footprint, because heating the water represents 60% of the carbon footprint of a detergent. When we take everything from extraction of material to make the product all the way to disposal, the biggest impact area is heating the water. So when you help people wash their clothes in cold, which by the way is something they want to do because they know it's better for the longevity of the clothes, they know the colors will stay brighter longer, that the shape will stay in shape longer, but people are afraid to do that because they're afraid that the stains will not come out. So this is an experience they want to have, but with their regular product, they cannot have. And so when we formulate Ariel or Tide to work best in cold water, this is irresistible for people, because even if they don't believe in the environment or they don't care about protecting the planet, they do care about their clothes, which is a way to protect them. And they do care about saving. And if you do that, you can save $150 a year if you use Tide in cold water, in terms of electricity saving. So this is a way to make it irresistible. It's a win-win for everyone. It's better for their clothes, it's better for the planet, it's better for them and their saving. So everybody wins.
Recognizing we're almost out of time here, I do really want to bring in a couple of audience questions we got ahead of time. So the first one is, what is the importance of ESG standards and reporting? And does P&G have an ESG framework that you use?
Yeah, and actually I invite you to go on pg.com because we have a fairly new ESG portal that actually details all our action, very much directed to investors because, you know, this is demand coming from them on ESG, but it's very complete. It talks about, you know, climate, water, waste, biodiversity, all the efforts that we are doing. And it's not really a different framework from what we are doing. I mean, everything we do, we try to make it really built in, not bolted on. So, of course, we follow the reporting frameworks like the SASB or the TCFD or the you know, CDP, but it's not separate efforts to the core ambition 2030, which is really our roadmap, you know, to enable and inspire positive impact.
And the second question is just a follow-on from that of how do you ensure transparency and accountability? Is the reporting enough, or are there other metrics where people can, you know, see benchmarks and key performance over time for the company? How do we ensure that it's not just a statement and greenwashing, but that you're delivering on those claims and performance?
Yeah, you know, there is an immense accountability on the goals. I mean, Ambition 2030, usually at P&G, you know, when we set a goal, it is a commitment grade, you know, we are going to meet him. And we make sure that it's linked to our business strategy. It's totally integrated in every division business strategy. And so we have very regular reviews, you know, we highlight the gaps where our business leaders need help. It's reviewed by the C-suite. And so there is a very clear accountability. And you know, we've developed beyond Ambition 2030, we've developed a specific brand framework, which is called Brand 2030, which is open source, it's public, and very, very precise criteria of what our brands need to deliver on, which is first, they need to define what we call a North Star, which is what is their social or environmental long-term commitment that is measurable, that fits with their equity and that is brought to life ongoing with tangible acts. And then you have a criteria on innovating on product and packaging to enable responsible consumption, criteria on transparency, on reducing your impact across the supply chain. And this is measured year in, year out, and you know, our brands need to deliver. There is internal and external reporting, so great accountability.
I'm taking notes. I'm going to go check it out and see how you guys are evaluating everything. The frameworks are so key. So thank you for that. The final one is in one word, how would you describe sustainability? And we'll end it with that.
Sustainability is really allowing societies and businesses to thrive within the planetary boundaries. And I believe that sustainability as a concept will need to evolve, because obviously we don't want to sustain today's world. We want to regenerate it. So I think better than sustainability, I would say it's regenerability. It's our collective ability to actually regenerate societies on the planet.
Well, thank you so much, Virginie, for your thoughts today. I really appreciate it. So great to speak with you. And thanks also to our audience for tuning in. And if you want to catch this entire session, it will be posted to the Prize's YouTube channel. I'm Julia Pyper. Thanks again. So great to be with you all today.